I go by what people tell me as far as their pain, their ability to avoid surgery, their ability to get back to doing the activities that they love, the ability to wear shoes comfortably again. And again, sometimes it's not about actually, making a visual change, but it's about function. And it's also about allowing people to take control and be able to manage their foot to put it in a better alignment, because, as you know, in a saying that I believe is that alignment dictates function, frequency, and flow. And so that is proven because of the length tension ratio that states that a muscle will contract with greatest vigor when it's at a particular length. So if it's too long or too short, it is not able to function properly.
This is the Justin Blake podcast experience for health professionals that mean business. So wherever you are in the world, listen as we discuss everything you need for you and your health business to survive and thrive. Thanks for listening.
Good afternoon, everybody, and very welcome. We're joined by my friend and colleague, DL Walker in Florida. How's things, DL?
Great, Justin. Thank you so much for having me.
Another sunny morning in
Florida. Yes.
Very good. Of course, quite an auspicious day, but we're here to talk about feet.
Mm-hmm.
So, tell me all about your journey.
Sure.
To get to fixing and helping foot problems.
Okay, sounds good. My journey from to the bottom, literally to the foot.
Yeah.
So I have been a physical therapist for over 25 years and did advanced study with a PT and became something called a certified functional manual specialist.
Yes.
And after that time, I started teaching a balance enhancement and fall prevention class about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was during that class that I realized the importance of the foot and ankle. As far as a balance strategy, obviously with gait, I saw the influence of the foot to the knee, to the pelvis, that dysfunctions in the pelvis were resulting from the foot. And I also realized that my mentor there was more to do from what my mentor had presented to me. So I was discovering all of this great information as I was teaching. So After that time,
where did you do your mentorship and training? Sorry.
Yes. So I have a bachelor's degree in fitness, a master's degree in exercise science, and a bachelor's degree in physical therapy from 3 different universities in the United States. I am licensed to practice in 3 states in the United States, and I did my advanced training with the Institute of Physical Art. And that was an organization founded by a husband and wife. The people that you may know he studied under a number of different famous people like Feldenkrais and Ida Rolf. But his mentor was a woman by the name of Maggie Knott, who was one of the co-developers of PNF, proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation.
Because it's all neural, isn't it?
Is all neuro?
Yeah.
Well, my mentor used to say that every neurological patient is an orthopedic patient and every orthopedic patient is a neurological patient. So yes.
Yes. Yeah. And but you've been specializing in fixing specific foot problems for 10 plus years now.
Well, so, after the teaching, I had a vision back in 1999 where I wanted to create online programs to teach people how to heal themselves, essentially. So at that time, it's 20, 30 years ago, there were no, the technology was not there. This was not available to us. So I ventured into the online market, actually, and created online programs for individuals to see if people who didn't have any special training could learn techniques to go ahead and resolve their foot and ankle problems. So I started developing YouTube videos, and then I started developing courses that I've been teaching, that I've been having online offered for over 5 years now.
Yeah, and of course now you're streets ahead of the game now that everybody's scrambling to become online teachers.
Yeah, and again, I think a lot of people who do manual therapy, like you and I, fail to realize that it actually, at least in my experience, it's very teachable. In fact, I actually have a before and after picture of a woman who has a severe bunion, who was never touched by a professional, and she was able to make gains on a bunion that I didn't even think was correctable.
Okay.
And I'm not going to say she corrected it.
How would you, do you stage bunions in certain, or do you measure or take before and after scan?
Yeah.
Or how do you monitor rather than just it looks a bit better?
Right.
How
Well, again, the number one indication for bunion surgery is pain. And that is objective. And that's really the reason that people get surgery for aesthetics. They get surgery because they're so again, what I don't have access to x-rays. So what I do go by is I go by what people tell me as far as their pain, their ability to avoid surgery, their ability to get back to doing the activities that they love, the ability to wear shoes comfortably again. And again, sometimes it's not about actually, making a visual change, but it's about function. And it's also about allowing people to take control and be able to manage their foot to put it in a better alignment, because as you know, in a saying that I believe is that alignment dictates function, frequency, and flow. And so that is proven because of the length tension ratio that states that a muscle will contract with greatest vigor when it's at a particular length. So if it's too long or too short, it is not able to function properly.
Yes, and so it just does nothing and does it become atrophied or weak, or what does it do?
Does what become atrophied?
The muscle.
When the length tension ratio is off? Well, it really depends. It depends on which muscle, right? But again, I don't know that it necessarily becomes atrophied. It just won't function ideally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, yes, and of course, it's always, as you say, pain tends to be makes the phone ring or makes the booking happen. We've all had patients. I had one lady one time who had her big toe was crossing over her fourth toe. When I questioned her about it, we just thought it was normal for her. Mm-hmm. She didn't think it was anything other than normal. Where, of course, lots of other patients would have a very slight deformity and get a whole host of problems with it. So, and again, that's it. I'm sure you deal with a lot of functional hallux rigidus. How do you get to 10 degrees or 5 degrees of dorsiflexion, a huge joint that's 2 or 3 times the size with osteophytes of the other foot, and it's only been troublesome for 6 months? Mm-hmm. How does that happen?
Well, the thing is that the problem's been going on for a long time. And it's I say that we are a manifestation of our compensations, and we wind up with pain or dysfunction or a need for surgery when we've run out of those compensations.
Yeah.
So what I do, and again, I'm just starting because clinically I've worked with hallux rigidus patients. And now I'm doing a beta test actually for individuals to resolve their hallux rigidus on their own. But yes. I address hallux rigidus like I address every other area of the body and the foot. So when my very first day of PT school orthopedics physical therapy class, I had a woman teacher by the name of Roz Sofer, and she taught me 3 things that I still use to this day. The first is structure dictates function, which I've now adapted to alignment dictates function, frequency, and flow. The second is that you need to have stability in order to have mobility, meaning that in order for us to have greater mobility, like in a hallux rigidus, we need to be able to stabilize that joint. Now, what happens with hallux rigidus, like any other arthritic problem, okay, is that there's inflammation. And when there's inflammation, for every cubic centimeter of inflammation, a muscle shuts down by 1%. The muscles that are closest to the joint that will be most affected by inflammation, particularly at the big toe joint or the first MTP joint, are the intrinsic muscles of the foot. They are the foot stabilizers. So that's why cortisone will help a lot of times with inflammatory processes that are causing a decrease in range of motion, as well as pain, of course. So that was the second. And the third is what I've adopted into what I call the foot freedom formula, which is release, realign, reinforce, or rebalance. So first we need to
And then, just before we go to that, do you think that podiatrists and physical therapists and orthopedists are too quick to jump to straight to surgery?
Absolutely. I believe that surgery should be your last option versus your first option. And the reason, one of the reasons being is medical errors and complications, which medical errors is the 3rd largest cause of death in the United States. It's estimated at about 250,000 people die a year due to medical errors. I had a routine dental procedure that could have killed me, or certainly, and it did affect my quality of life for a month because I had an undiagnosed sterile infection that the surgeon thought was impossible. And if I didn't know who I knew and what I know, I would likely not be sitting here right now.
Okay. And so do you think a lot of patients who find you for a more conservative approach are they looking for alternatives to surgery, or have they had surgery that's failed, or are they waiting on the waiting list and then want some relief in the meantime? On the waiting, especially in the health service, and especially in these times now, where it could be a year, 2, 3 years. The problem's just going to get worse and worse.
Yeah, and again, the wait time in the U.S. is not that long. So I'm dealing with a bit of a different.
Depends where you live and if you've got insurance.
That is true, or money. Because people do pay out of pocket. That being said, I believe, and I have found that people can, again, avoid surgery. And if they are prepping themselves and taking control, and I'm starting to do research on this with some podiatric surgeons here in the US, that their outcomes will be better because they have addressed the underlying problem, so that they're better prepared also, not only physically, but mentally, for a post-surgical rehab that will be, in my mind, more beneficial. And that's why I've asked you about the prehab research on your end. If you can find that, I'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, really, if anybody knows, we're still trying to track it down.
Okay, no worries.
Shows that prehab or pre-therapy can speed up the rate of recovery and speed up rehab.
Yes, we found that research. has been shown in other body parts. And interesting enough, what we are now delivering in the United States, and it's become more popular because of the virus, has been telehealth, where we are getting reimbursed for online sessions like this with our patients. And I don't know if that's something that is going on in your neck of the woods. A lot of the, especially the pain and movement specialists, biomechanics have all pivoted and moved to a lot more online. Guess what? You can watch movement through the screen. You can get people online just like this, because we're going to go on with how you treat specifically bunions and things in a minute. And so, it's a golden opportunity. I mean, I've consulted in 3 continents now. I mean, I'm sure you're the same. It's fantastic. Set up a call, quick chat. It's patients are looking for more online, more information now, because we're in the healthcare business, and businesses are booming, or it should be. I agree.
Yeah, and you can see more and more people trying to find you online.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've consulted with people worldwide as well.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of them find me on YouTube.
Yes. Because that's it. I mean, it's so from all over the world. If somebody puts in "fix my bunion" or "bunion problem," I mean, you could come up as well as anybody else. I mean, this is it. This is what makes the internet so good and so global. That you have to be around the corner or in that locality. You can be anywhere in the world.
Yes.
I think that's what a lot of colleagues don't really get. That they could be.
And
I practice my Portuguese because my Brazilian contacts, Portuguese isn't that great.
Well, I think part of the problem is that it's something new. And again, I have a lot of friends who are school teachers, and they are having a really difficult time. Many of them are in school and doing online simultaneously. And they are very challenged and taxed because this is something new to them. And again, there are growing pains. I had them. The times that I have, broken down because of technology, it is, I can't even begin to tell you, both with actually, being online with somebody or even in the back.
You can see my new background today. I'm in a friend's restaurant/cafe, stealing his Wi-Fi because mine is absolutely atrocious. So that's it. The technology needs to be there, but a good link, and then But with patients as well, they will seek out. Again, I've gone over this ad infinitum. People just think that patients just appear in their clinic or phone their clinic just randomly. Right. And it's a whole process. I mean, people could have been watching your videos for the 4 or 5 years before they decide to touch base.
Sure.
We've all had patients sitting in front of us, and you have to say, just tell me that again. 5 years, 10 years. It's crazy what people will put up with or try or, to get relief.
Sure, absolutely. And, the thing is that I've created the programs where I've made them subscriptions so that individuals have the ability to get what they need. And then I also provide the clients with online live classes as well, so that they have the direct access as well. But again, they are free to cancel at any time. There's no obligation. How
did you get to the stage where you were more interested in the feet and with the physical therapists who were specializing in that? And then obviously you were treating more hands-on then, as well as the offline was. If it wasn't the first go-to treatment, was it?
It was a little bit of both simultaneously.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I said, I had the idea to put stuff online 30 years ago. So this has kind of been a dream come true. Yeah. As soon as it came out.
Did that more develop out of sort of follow-up exercises or programs for patients after they'd come and visited you?
As a matter of fact, yes. In fact, I've now created a membership program that's a monthly membership program that people can step down to. And it is called Correcticize, which is corrective exercises that are performed in a correct manner, teaching you the proper way to posture, to recruit. And in that, I'm doing a total body renovation using the release, realign, reinforce from the toe to head. And so individuals can step down to that. But reinforcement, part of the programs that I create, the rebalancing or reinforcement is exercise.
Yes.
However,
certainly that's going to be a little bit better than somebody just giving them a stick man drawn on a piece of paper or a photocopied sheet with exercise. It's certainly a lot more dynamic. So let's say somebody came to you let's go through your bunion protocol, because you have bunion. So Ian Riley wants to know, do you correct bunions non-surgically? Yes, Ian, I've been correcting bunions non-surgically for years. You can have all the pre and post-op or post-treatment x-rays that you want, but acres of them. But we're going to go on to talk about DL's protocol. And we'll share screens and stuff. So if somebody comes to you, initial assessment, what are you looking for?
Well, again, primarily, I now distinguish bunions in three ways. So I have a functional bunion test that I have people do online to determine their bunion type. And when I look at a foot, I want to think about...
Somebody like Mr. Ryan want to know what those three types are and what those tests are. So let's go into those, because this is for physical therapists and podiatrists. So the three types of bunion, are there three? Go ahead.
This is my categorization. So it is my names. Okay. So I categorize them as a forefoot, a midfoot, and a walking bunion.
Okay.
And basically what we look at is the alignment from the medial malleoli to the arch of the foot, to the first metatarsal, to the tip of the hallux, to the distal hallux. And then you create a line, right? So what's interesting, what I found, and this was a mistake that I made a while back, is that many people were, and still do, address just the big toe. And they try to get the big toe aligned with the first metatarsal. However, if the big toe is already aligned with the medial malleoli, you're actually bringing it into further abduction, right? So going beyond where it functionally should be. Because again, when we think of the dynamics of the gait cycle and the alignment of the lower leg with regard to tracking over the second toe, we don't want to mess that up, because the big toe is so important for balance and gait, which again is why I became kind of passionate about the foot. So
the exercises you use wedges and taping as well. And just if I can refer Ian to the in podiatry now, Ted Jednak had about 10 years ago or more now. It was a single case study article, shows before and after decreasing into metatarsal angle, probably about 15, 20 degrees, over about 10, 12 weeks. Podiatry now, Ted Jednak was that article. These guys, the surgeons always like the research. So you use wedging and taping specifically with exercise.
Primarily taping. And
so you've got something on your screen. Show me.
Yes. I can show you if I can share my downloads here. Let's see.
Did you have a share screen button on the bottom there?
Oh, I have no idea. Let's see.
Should under your name, under the little thing down the bottom, mute, stop camera, share screen, invite, leave studio. No.
Oh yes. I'm sorry. Share screen.
There we go.
Okay. I am not seeing how to get my.
It should be just share screen and then click on the screen you want to share.
Okay. Are you seeing my download screen right now?
Not yet. Just give it a second.
Not yet.
Have you clicked share screen yet?
I did.
Okay, just give it a second. Share screen, and it should be a thing pops up, says sharing tips, and then you should click share screen, and no.
I have here, it says your entire screen, application.
Click it.
Which one? The entire screen?
Yes, please.
Yeah, it's not giving me the ability to share.
Click the other one.
Here. Nope. Hold on. Yes. Okay. It was applications. Can you see the tapes?
Add to the stream. Yeah, there we go. Let me see. Yeah.
Okay. So if you're looking at the screen, there are various different tapes that have different uses or utilizations. Depending on tensile strength and that kind of thing. So remember I had said that I use, and I don't know that this will work, but I could give it a try. If I just go ahead and go to a different screen, will that work, or do I have to unscreen? Do you see the foot freedom formula?
Just click on your next slide. And you
I see.
Well, give it a second.
Okay.
But, okay. Yeah. Do you want to click on the next one? It hasn't moved on the thing.
Okay. So what I had said earlier is that I use a particular formula to address foot and ankle problems as well as other parts of the body. And that was, let's see, sorry, is right here. So what's interesting is that when you use kinesiotape, or different.
I can't see what you're looking at. We could just.
You can.
So just do click whatever one you did before.
I did, and it's on my screen, but it says stop sharing. Well, what I'll say is that the tape can do all three of the steps of the foot freedom formula, which are release, right? So you can tape a muscle into inhibition to make it work less. It can realign by just going ahead and placing it in the position that you want and aligning. And then it can reinforce by also facilitating particular muscles to be excited.
Okay. And what would be the difference in the different types of tape? Does kinesio tape, pink or blue, make a difference, or does that mean you've got an expensive physical?
That's where it gets difficult, because there are about 90 different kinesio tapes on the market. So it's not all rubbish. Is it?
Pardon? Is one tape not just the same as another?
Some of them have different. You have to read about the different tensile strengths of them. So again, there's been a lot of research on the effects of kinesio tape for inhibition, for activation, for lymphatic drainage, for edema, and that kind of thing. So it is a pretty powerful tool. What I like about it is that you can address one particular area with one piece of tape versus an orthotic device, which is one device trying to address multiple areas at the same time. So you can be highly specific.
Before, we had no taping training in changing biomechanical function. It was 2 or 3 years after I qualified. I worked with somebody who qualified in Australia, and they did nothing but tape. Nobody got a pair of orthotics, or nobody got any progression of their treatment unless they had improvements with taping. So that's where I learned all my taping from. It was never taught in undergraduate, like a lot of things.
No, it wasn't taught when I was in school either. So yes, this is something that I've learned through continuing education, and then use the concepts to create my various different taping techniques for the foot and ankle. So, again, those I've learned the concepts, but I've kind of made my own way. So there's actually new products on the market. Pardon?
The taping wouldn't be used as a long term. It's only quite a short term. It's, again, it's up to the individual. Sometimes they need it, sometimes they don't. Particularly, just like an athlete, if they're going to be going and doing competition, and they have, a known Achilles heel, so to speak, excuse the pun, that they will, go ahead and tape for it and be prepared in that manner. So that's what, that's what I recommend to individuals. The other benefit too is that you can be barefoot, as well as, sleeping with the tape on, because again, it's providing sensory input. And what the research has found is that over 67% of sensory fibers for proprioception are, 67% of proprioception nerves are sensory nerves, right? Versus motor nerves, okay? So there's more sensation than there is motor. And what will happen is that this is why bracing, orthotics, even shoes, they provide sensory input to the skin, which in turn will, affect the mechanics. How do you like night splints?
How do I like leg splints?
Night splints for bunions.
Night splints. Here's my thing, is that, again, we need to create, dorsiflexion is not just at the ankle. Dorsiflexion is not just at the ankle. And I'll tell you how I know this for sure, right? Connective tissues that affect dorsiflexion go all the way to the tips of the toes. I'm going to tell you a story about a patient with a cerebral palsy. It was a young woman. She lacked about 5 degrees of dorsiflexion on her affected side. I used the diagnostic techniques that I used in clinic. This was an in-clinic patient. And it told me to mobilize or release. I call it release. You call it mobilization. It called for me to release her big toe. Just by releasing her big toe, she gained 5 degrees of dorsiflexion, and she maintained it.
Yeah.
So again, when we have it in our head that, this person has cerebral palsy or they've had a stroke, and that's why they can't achieve dorsiflexion, well, we really have to look at all the components and make sure that that's the case. Right?
Well, a lot of it is what we've talked, or like with the anatomy in motion before. It's allowing the joint to access its range of movement. It's allowing it to showing it can function in a safe way.
Well, again, there has to be fluid mobility. I look at motion like a row of dominoes, right? So if I have domino 1 is at, let's say, the tips of the toes for dorsiflexion, right? That's domino 1. Domino 10 is all the way into my lower leg, right? Above the malleolus, above the joint, right? I need to have fluid motion through all of those dominoes, right? In order for me to have good dorsiflexion. Now, this is where people, again, conventional treatment, they're going right to the ankle joint when they're not addressing, can the toes dorsiflex? Can the metatarsals dorsiflex? Can the tarsal bones go into dorsiflexion? If not, then, again, and this is going in open chain, right? Closed chain I look at using closed chain a little bit differently. I go just the opposite direction. Can the lower leg come forward? Is there a restriction in the tib fib? is there a restriction in any of the calf muscles, right? Any of the shin muscles? Because not only does the muscle need to lengthen for range of motion, but this is something that was harped by my mentor on me, is that it also needs to shorten. Okay, the opposite side needs to be able to fold, right? And the other side needs to lengthen. So it could be a lengthening problem, it could be a folding problem. Is that
to explain like the catapult has to be drawn out to full before it can spring back? Is that type of?
No, it's simple movement. It's simple movement. And a lot of times it's very evidenced in the lumbar spine. It's highly evidenced there. We're working anteriorly on the lumbar spine will oftentimes very much improve individuals' experience of pain. It's not just the posterior. So the anterior, those vertebra need to be able to come forward and fold. There needs to be folding. So if I lack dorsiflexion in the closed chain, it could be a problem posteriorly, but it also could be a problem anteriorly. And the thing is that you need to figure out, and I do it through palpation, where the tender spot is, and then I release it. So for me, a connective tissue that is tender will need to be released. If it's not tender,
How does the patient figure this out online themselves?
Because everyone can feel pain, even somebody unconscious.
But then how can they figure out, I mean, we'll go back to, you said there's 3 types of forefoot, midfoot, and walking bunions. So how does the patient figure out which one they've got?
They take my functional bunion test.
Okay, and I'm sure we'll be able to put a link to that later on, and everybody can do that, so we'll get the same reproducible outcome.
It's just dots and lines. So
we'll later on. But are we going to? And then, how does the treatment vary then, depending on which one you find?
Well, we always need to address the metatarsophalangeal joint, because that's the bunion joint. So it's going to be dysfunctional on everyone. And if there's pain, first thing we need to do is we need to get people out of pain by stabilization, right? Yeah. So again, we do that by decreasing inflammation. So any kind of anti-inflammatory treatment. The second is taping for stability. Yeah. And then the third is now going ahead and releasing the connective tissues that are causing that structure to be in that particular alignment.
Yeah. And then what you're looking at when you said that lady came in and she had this wonderful result with her body and it was resolved.
It wasn't. No, the woman that worked on her own. I don't know if I'll try to share the screen again, but it wasn't resolved by any stretch. But she was able to avoid surgery. She was able to go back hiking.
Yeah, but we have patients who have done that where we've had no change we've had lots of change in the actual alignment, and this is weight-bearing X-ray. And there's been a huge change in the alignment, no change in the pain. Conversely, we've had huge reduction in pain, no change in things. And pain's a pretty special thing, because if people stop being active and stop wearing the stupid shoes and stop doing things, of course the pain's going to go away anyway. So how do we know it wasn't the being as less active, or how do we know that it wasn't then that the joints got so compromised that the function mechanics isn't able to work as well as causing the pain, and that's been the change?
Well, here's my thing, is that my goal is to allow people to get back to doing the things that bring them quality of life.
Yeah.
What the mechanism is, I could care less.
Yeah.
So
we had a couple of comments on about, I think us as podiatrists, or me as a podiatrist, and any podiatrists listening, get quite possessive of the foot. You don't own it. Everybody to treat it. DL to treat it.
Of course.
we've talked before. I don't care if the guy sweeping the streets can fix my Achilles problem. I'm going to see him. I don't care what qualifications are on the wall. If anybody wants to know about this, look at my video I did 3 years ago. You're talking Martian to your patients. If you're just talking about all your qualifications and my stuff on the wall, and this is it. So colleagues, they get very possessive of this. And Gary Ward, I think, talks about the misunderstood body part, the still misunderstood foot. Mm-hmm. But somebody goes off and gets a 3-year or 4-year qualification in podiatry and thinks that they now own the foot. Yeah, you've got a very much go to learn. You weren't even taught taping.
Well, you know, here's the thing. I think there's a time where people need to put their ego aside and look at what is working for them. You know, the strategies that work for me might not work for you.
Yeah.
That's why I chose to study with the individual that I studied with, because he was very his work was very much about observation and palpation. Those are two of my greatest strengths. Arthrokinematics, not. But you know what? It works. And it works well for me.
Your initial protocol it's a 4-week protocol?
For bunions, it's actually the way that it's set up is that it's 8 weeks. And then individuals have another 4 weeks where they don't pay and they still get the program for free. So that they can continue.
For them, it involves them doing what to themselves?
Release, realign, and reinforce.
Do you have any video of that, or you have pictures of that?
Yeah, I have.
Let's start to share it.
Yeah, forget that.
That's what everybody's waiting for. Let's share. No?
Oh, I can, you know what? I'm having trouble sharing my screen with you.
You've got it on YouTube. Do you want to send me the link? Share it?
I actually, my YouTube channel is called Fix You Online TV. It's FIXU, the letter U, Online TV. And you can look it up on YouTube, and there's a ton of videos that introduce some of the bunion strategies, and then there's actually links in those videos to the functional bunion test, where you can take a look, and then people can sign up for more training, so they see what's involved, and then they can make a decision on whether it's the right fit for them or not. And it's as simple as that. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think you've written the Coldplay lyrics. Hold on.
I'm having trouble sharing my screen. I've never used this format before, so I apologize. I wasn't.
You've got it.
Sharing video.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah, don't worry. I'm all over it. Let me just share this screen. Your entire screen, and we are good to go. Here we go. You can see this now.
Hey everyone, it's Tina Walker here, creator of the bunion solution and the comprehensive core release technique. And today, I'm going to show you an exercise you can do to resolve your bunions.
Don't worry.
When we are talking,
nearly there.
I still can't see it.
Don't worry, it's coming. Hold on. Give me a second.
Okay.
Working hard here.
All right.
Have we got it now?
Oh, I hate my lipstick in this one. Of all the ones you had to pick, Justin.
Well, this is exercise to shrink the bunion. So anyway.
Able to work.
Yes.
And then we'll get started.
Here we go. So let me just say this. So we go, first of all, the patient does some stuff with their hands on themselves, then they do some stuff with, or do they do the exercise first?
No. Release is always first. And realignment is always first, because again, I want to create the ideal alignment in order to then reinforce. And because of the length tension ratio that I mentioned earlier, I want them in ideal alignment. So in my program, they do their rebalancing or exercises when they are already released and taped. Otherwise, I'm wasting my time.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, the human body will do anything to achieve emotion. It doesn't give a crap whether it's doing it properly or not, right? So if I want to serve a tennis ball, right, that's my goal, but I only have 60 degrees of shoulder range of motion, I'm not doing my body any good service by practicing or exercising that shoulder joint to serve a tennis ball. And it's the same with the body. Is we want to restore alignment as ideally as possible, and then go ahead and reinforce it and then if we can use facilitating tape, it will go ahead and help you with the this is much better. I like this one. This is actually a great technique. This is something that is just a very, very simple technique. And in fact, one of the comments on the bunions, this woman actually could do her spring cleaning just from making an X over her bunion.
Resting on a table, an ottoman, or your other on top of the other bunion.
Okay, so all this is online. Anyway, let's get back to inquiring minds. Where's the apart from a few anecdotal things? Have we got any long-term 5-year cured because not avoiding surgery?
None of the patients that I've ever treated have shared with me that they had to go back to surgery. I don't see them for 5 years. So I guess you do too. It's like if you don't hear from me, you can assume that they're doing well.
Yeah, I mean, well, that was it. In the last 10 years, I was all about manual therapy. That's how I fixed feet without orthotics and things. Again, that's a discussion for another day. And yeah, anybody wants to learn all about this, we're doing this in what the F is all about mechanics course. We treat and work in the same way, manual therapy based. I wasn't quite as specific exercise. I mean, that's quite a large part of, what is it, a 5 or 10 minute part of the program per day?
You know what? Listen, if you're walking on an aligned body, then every step you take is an exercise.
Yeah. Yeah, I think some colleagues get a little bit confused because, like back to the hallux rigidus, it's something that's taken 50 years to get there. It's quite a slow glacial. They're looking for change, sort of structural change there that's going to, and I mean, I've seen that with anatomy in motion with this. I mean, just a very slight alignment change can unlock or could make a whole host of the different issues.
Yes, absolutely.
Help to resolve them and muscle strength and accessing other ranges of motion elsewhere. It's a little bit just like unlocking the key or using the skeleton key to unlock the whole. Mm-hmm. But again, as you said, it's getting to know where to look.
Absolutely, and again, what is the goal? What is the patient's goal? Because
how important is the talus?
It's part of the component, but it might be a component in one patient and not a component in another patient, and that's why when I'm creating online programs for individuals, I have to cover everything. When I'm working in clinic, I can see what needs to be addressed through watching their motion. And again, like I said, I kind of use that row of dominoes idea, and wherever they're stuck, that's where I'm addressing. And so, like I said, a lot of times it is not, I had a teacher in physical therapy that said, you always have to treat the boo-boo, but that's not necessarily where the cause is.
You always have to treat the what?
Boo-boo. The boo-boo. The boo-boo. The pain. You have to treat that area, but that's not necessarily where the cause is, and that's not necessarily where they're going to get better. So again, if I'm looking at closed chain plantar flexion, which is push-off phase of gait, I need to look at the whole kinetic chain going from the knee down, and make sure that there's movement that's being distributed equally through each part of the kinetic chain so that there's not an excessive mobility at the first MTP joint, because that's why HR develops. It's a hypermobility initially. It becomes an instability. And then what happens is when something has too much pressure on it, right, bones form. That becomes arthritic. So the reason that it's hypermobile is because the other areas are hypomobile around it.
Yeah.
So you have to address the other areas.
It's trying to do too much work to compensate for the restriction in the other areas.
Yes, because the body doesn't care how it achieves emotion. It'll do whatever it needs to do to get done. It doesn't care about quality.
No, it wants to move sagittally to the other side of the room, the road, the track, the football pitch, the rugby pitch. It doesn't care how it gets there. It's all about keeping this level and keeping the brain intact, and it figures out all the rest of the way. Are we retraining movement patterns, or are we just resetting nerve?
You have to, right, that's part of the reinforcement or the rebalancing is the retraining. Okay, so first you have to make you have to give them the body that can do the motion, right? Because again, if I only have that 60 degrees of elbow flexion and I'm trying to teach somebody to serve a ball, it's not going to work, right? So we have to give them the body that can then do the activity properly. However, what we need to also do is, because we are thinking human beings, we can use our brains usually, right? Because most people have if we're working with an Alzheimer's patient, that is different. But if we have somebody who has cognitive facilities, what we can then do is we can make them aware of the proper movement, right? That's actually part of PNF, which I mentioned earlier, which was part of my mentor's training and which I became very familiar with about.
Yeah, if you didn't hear about that proprioceptive, what is it,
neuromuscular facilitation. It was developed in the 50s.
It's about came out of sort of stroke retraining. You don't point lifting your arm up and down like that. You don't do that. You need to extend and retract the movement patterns that the actual function is, the dynamic function is for, rather than just up and down.
Yeah, it's more than movement patterns, but yes, the people are most familiar with the patterns.
I only know about it. I used to be married to a physiotherapist, so I know about PNF. How much do you think of footwear is a component?
Well, developmentally huge, okay, because we were meant to be barefoot or in minimalist shoes. So when we're put on regular shoes and then walking on a flat terrain where we're not getting that natural mobilization of the foot, that's huge. I think that's the reason why we have foot problems. So that is, so it's the cause, but then it can also, anything that can improve function, I'm good, right? It is not my area of specialty. So that's when I refer to a podiatrist or a podiatrist I tend to refer to, at least in the US, because they seem to be the experts in shoes where I am. So again, there will be, I would rather, however, use it as an adjunct to help fix the foot or reinforce it. Unfortunately, sometimes what happens is that, like with rocker bottom shoes, for example, right? They'll improve function, but they're not, and they might decrease pain, but they're not addressing the problem. So
do you remember NBT shoes? Of course you do.
Oh, you mean the ones that are supposed to elicit core contraction?
Do everything. And like barefoot technology, just basically a rocker bottom shoe, got rid of the first hallux limit or hallux function.
I think that was pretty much a fad. But again, some minimal shoes are not appropriate for everyone either.
It's $1 billion fad.
Yeah,
everybody had them.
Yeah.
Same way fit flops and Skechers. We've got to invent the next thing, DL.
Mm.
Quite. Everybody had MBTs over a couple of years. They were great for people with with hallux rigidus problems. Absolutely, lower back pain, and that whole work of Howard Dannenberg and sagittal plane, functional hallux limitus and back pain. And if people haven't read the papers, they're in my private Facebook group. I mean, they're sort of seminal podiatry mechanics papers. And again, we're covering all that in the courses that I'm running. Footwear is an effect, but of course some people can wear all the wrong shoes. I mean, I think it's got to just do with the underlying mechanics, and that envelope of function that some people have is better than others.
Yes. Here's the thing. If you can do something good or proper for your body 80% of the time, that's 80% of the time you'll be better. Does it mean, I want people to be able, if they have an event, to wear shoes that they make them confident, make them happy. Women have a special relationship with shoes, Justin.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. And what's nice about the taping, actually, is that they can use that to wear shoes that might give them a problem otherwise if they're not taped.
And I like that. I like that also. I I've watched Sex in the City, so I'm aware. I was a podiatrist for years. I've had to deal with that bullshit for forever. And they're blue, they're size 5, but they're 2 sizes too small. But I just really have to wear them. Can't you help me? Okay. I've got a mortgage to pay. You keep wearing shit shoes. I've got kids to put through college. Was my normal line. It's footwear is a huge thing. But as you say, trying to fit an orthotic, and you're not going to get somebody to swap their Milanos for a rocker bottom shoe, are you? So taping can work very well.
Well, what the nice thing is, and somebody mentioned it to me, is because I've done so much work on my feet, that I am able to still wear heels and sandals and dress shoes comfortably and safely. So if you have a good foot, is it ideal? No. Is it good for you? No. But is it something that can be realistic with the right amount of preparation? Absolutely. And if that's important to somebody, then I honor that.
Yeah, we can train the body to do anything. I mean, I was just on to one of my ballet clients, and I mean, what she can do with her body, but it's taken her 20 years of regular practice and training to be able to get the body to train to do that. So
absolutely,
put your mind to the body can adapt and change it in a bad way and in a positive way.
Yeah.
But, I get with the questions that are coming, correcting, and when we use words like correct and fix, and because we used to fix, I used to have the tagline for the business where people with foot pain came to get it fixed. They could fix pain in a couple of days, as you see. Just stop doing that and address the inflammation, and of course the pain goes away. But I think that if we just talk about pain all the time, it's not really getting to the root cause, because some people just want the pain relief, that cortisone injection, that stop wearing those silly shoes. So that's not a long-term correction.
No, it isn't. No, and that's why, like I said, I've developed the material that I've developed so that not only can people correct feet, but then move to correcting their entire alignment in their system so that they can, continue to do the things that they like to do in life as they get older. I am now 51 and I am, as active as I was 20 years ago.
Do you find then that patients come back to you and it's unearthed something else, or the shoulders now played up? And of course, we always have that patient who comes in who can't remember that surgery or the pin that they have, and they forget all these bad things that have happened to the system over the years. But do you find it unearths other problems?
I think when somebody has success in one area of the body, they respect your opinion as far as working in other areas as well. So again, my technique is not for everybody. It happens when people work with me. It happens to be excruciatingly painful. I have been told that I should be a interrogator for the U.S. government because
that's terrible.
That is how it's gone. Yeah,
what I was called. Because again, some people can be quite hypersensitive, oversensitive. Let me just try and plug in this phone so we don't lose Instagram. And other patients can put up with quite a lot, can't they? They can. Sorry, I say other patients can put up with quite a lot of pain and discomfort.
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand you.
Other patients can put up with quite a lot of pain and discomfort. And those patients,
there are those that do, and I think they realize that it's helping, so they're a lot better about it than they would be otherwise. I used to work for 45 minutes, and it's a little bit too much for people, so I tend to do 30 minutes now, unless somebody's flying in to see me, in which case I would probably take a little bit longer. So again, that's it's unfortunately the only way that I know how to do what I do. And is what works best for me. So what's interesting about the mobilization technique or the release technique that I do is that the patient is actually an active member of the release. So they are moving, they're creating the release through their own movement, which is great because it helps with neuromuscular rehabilitation, or it gets a neuromuscular sense as well as going into the specific ranges of motion. So if I'm treating somebody in closed chain dorsiflexion, I have them standing and I'm behind them on the floor working on them as they're moving into dorsiflexion versus keeping them in open chain and and then expecting it to translate into closed chain. And so, another concept that I gleaned from my master's in exercise science was that specificity of training. In order to get better at something, you need to do that particular thing. And the closest that you can mimic it, the better off you're going to be. So that is why the technique is also quite painful. But what I also like about it is that the patient is in control. So my palpation remains stationary or stagnant, and it's the patient that's in control of the movement or how much or the intensity of the release by their movement. So that is a technique that I gained from my mentor. I've modified it a little bit, but I also treat in rotation, so that we're working through the transverse and sagittal planes as well. Yeah, which is kind of cool. So again, those things are very helpful with toes. They're very helpful with metatarsals. They're very helpful with lower leg dysfunctions, rotations, low-legged, those kinds of things as well, where there's a rotary technique or a rotary component to the problem.
We work through the full triplanar range of movement.
Yes, absolutely.
Our colleague Ian again is looking for some X-rays and things, but again, I can do that on a different thing. I can send them to him separately. So, DL, how can people find out more about you? And again, because there's quite an overlap between what you and I are doing.
Yeah.
You're further ahead with the patient online education sort of portal and the resources that you have. So, how do people find out a bit more about you?
Well, I have a website that is dlwalkerconsultant.com, as well as thebunyonsolution.com, thetailorbunionsolution.com. So I have several domains. Obviously, Fix You Online TV. You can reach out to me on Facebook. You can message me there. My email is support@dlwalkerconsultant.com if you have any questions. But I appreciate you taking the time, and
we'll put those links up into the post afterwards.
Do you want me to put them in there, or you want to do it?
No, you're okay. I'll be able to do it from my end.
You'll be able to do it from your end?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thank you again for your time. And
we have some of your stuff already on my private Facebook group, the Foot Mobilisation Clann. And again, if anybody else wants to find out information, they can contact me as well. And certainly very good on jump to normal therapy, especially for patients who don't want surgery. I mean, I would have seen lots of patients who've been on a waiting list for a year. And then
like I said,
all we say is, do you want surgery? They were like, no. And I'm like, well, why are you on a waiting list to see a surgeon? And I say, especially with waiting lists, imagine everybody who went on the bunion surgery list got just a simple video and exercises to do for the year or the 2 years that they're going to be waiting, perhaps, or even the 3 to 6 weeks, or even rehab would be fantastic. And I don't know, Ian, do you recommend patients doing prehab exercises before they have surgery for foot, midfoot, ankle problems? I know, DL, you do a lot of work with total ankle replacements.
Yeah.
You're doing prehab for those type of surgeries.
Yeah. The thing about it, I like to say, is that make your appointment with your consult, for whatever, and you can always cancel it. It's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it, especially if you're waiting months or years. Because if you are in pain and you can't resolve it, then you want to get that resolved as quickly as possible. That is going to be important, but there's no reason that you just need to be passive and waiting when there are actions that you can take that can really benefit you either during the wait time or certainly after the surgery. And that's what I recommend. And, here in the US, there aren't, not every patient who has bunion surgery gets physical therapy. In fact, the majority of them don't.
Majority of them here don't either. Even post-surgery, they don't get. I mean, if you go for a knee or a hip, I have my hip done. There's plenty of post-surgical stuff.
Yeah.
Patients with foot surgery just get turfed out. See ya. Check it in a couple of weeks and they're good to go. Anyway, we're going to go. We're getting thrown out. We've used up all their Wi-Fi. So I'm sure this will spark some interest. And again, DL isn't the only person who's been fixing feet with manual therapies. Ted Jednak, people have been doing it for centuries. It's nothing new. I think one time before I said to you, DL, I was accused of bringing the profession back, wasn't progressive enough because it was relying on manual therapies. But as you said, we're all looking for the best fix and help the patient. And if this works, rather than them open, let's start with the simple stuff first. DL, it's been a pleasure as always.
All right, thanks, Justin. Have a good one.
Okay.